Well, good evening, everybody. And the sharp amongst you will realise that I am not actually Professor George Talbot, who was going to introduce this evening, but he sadly is unwell. And so my name is Professor Jo Crotty, and I'm Director of the Institute for Social Responsibility here at Edge Hill. And I've been one of the co-chairs of this year's Festival of Ideas. This evening's event, Turning Disaster into Opportunity, is brought to you by our Data Science Research Centre, where Professor Paul Aplin will be discussing the events of the last year in the context of sustainability. So, as Paul's picture has now appeared on my screen, I'm going to hand over to Paul, who will be curating this evening's event. Over to you, Paul, and very best of luck.
Thank you very much. Well, welcome everyone. I'm delighted to have you here. And we're here virtually, of course, because of the circumstances. I'm only sorry not to see you face to face. This was initially intended to be a face-to-face event, and it's a nice occasion for the local community to get together, but actually broadcasting it has perhaps widened the reach a little bit. I'm sorry to drag you away from the Euros, drag you away from Wimbledon, Tour de France, and so on. Very pleased that the England game isn't on tonight. I suspect that might have hit attendance. And I'm here to talk about turning disaster into opportunity. So let me just get to, there we go. Okay, so I'm going to talk about in the context of the last year and the effect that COVID, especially COVID lockdown, has had on certain aspects of the environment. But I am going to focus very much on research that we've been undertaking for some time here at Edge Hill on savanna environments and changes to savanna environments in and around Southern Africa. And there will be a quiz later on, as Joe mentioned. The Great African Dung Quiz is coming your way. Some of you have seen this before, I know. So there are prizes, so I will perhaps be running it as some sort of handicap event, considering those who have experienced this before. So we'll start in the most obvious place. I probably don't need to say too much about this. You probably don't want to be reminded too much about this. COVID has impacted everything that we've been doing over the last year. I've grabbed some slides from my teaching. I'm pleased to say that I'm demonstrating some of the teaching engagement that we've had related to COVID environmental work this year. And this is my opening slide to my environmental issues module. So I won't say anything more about the COVID itself, but just to consider it in the context in which we all perceive it most, as this disastrous event, this environmental disaster, which has had huge impact on human species, human population, and caused all of the effects and impacts that you know very well. But then let's think about the environment. So the focus, of course, is on the problems that we've had to handle and mitigate. But COVID has had mixed impacts and repercussions on the environment. And here's just one example. I'm just going to dip in and give 2 or 3 examples about this through the talk today. I'm not going to give a broad brush summary of COVID and the environment generally. In terms of air pollution, the lockdown that came about as a result of COVID meant that there was significantly less economic activity going on, especially including use of transport. That means much less fuel emissions from road traffic, especially also from aircraft. And this should mean much better air quality. And I hope that some of you are familiar with these sorts of graphics. I'm a geographer, I'm a remote sensor, I work with satellite images. So I'm quite familiar with this sort of thing. And I was very pleased to see these sorts of images popping up in the media. This is from a news article last spring, or spring, early summer, when COVID first hit and we all locked down. We saw these sorts of images. This is a European Sentinel image of China, of course, showing nitrogen dioxide pollution. And you can see in the period 1st to 20th of January, you can see relatively high levels of air pollution, especially around urban centres. So we've got Beijing, and so on up here, and Shanghai is a little outlier down here. This is Wuhan, where COVID started. And then if we look at the same image immediately after lockdown started, so lockdown in China was around the 21st of January, I think it was very rapid after COVID emerged. And then a little while later, there wouldn't be some natural loss here because air pollution changes with the season, but the images here don't lie. They show a very stark picture of a complete absence of nitrogen dioxide in the atmosphere during the lockdown process, quite a tough lockdown in China. So this is good. This is good news. You know, there is some good coming out of this in terms of reducing air pollution. And just to link again to our teaching, I bid Joe a hello on the chat a moment ago. Joe has just completed our BSc Geography degree program, and this was his dissertation. He did his dissertation with me, and he chose this subject: does lockdown reduce nitrogen dioxide in England? And these are the 2019 images on the left, showing normal levels of air pollution, and these are the 2020 images on the right, showing significantly reduced air pollution. And the most significant one here is the lockdown period. This is in the middle of lockdown, 23rd of March to 28th of May in the UK. And you can see in 2019, lots of air pollution. In 2020, less so. So thanks to Joe for providing this content. It was an excellent dissertation. So I'd like to start to think about the origin of COVID, because that has some environmental implications as well. So COVID, we know, started in Wuhan, and there are debates going on about exactly how it started. There are stories going around in the mainstream media, not only kind of background chatter about possible lab leaks and so on. We don't know. We don't know what the actual answer is here, but it's highly likely that it emerged from an environmental cause. These other discussions are to some extent politicized. There may be some veracity in them. It's impossible to say, but this is probably where it came about. So COVID started in a wet food market in Wuhan. A wet food market trade wild animals, so non-domesticated animals, and often this trade is illegal. And coronaviruses can jump from other species to humans. So coronavirus jumped from a different species to humans. I'm going to ask you some questions throughout the talk, leading up to the quiz, when we'll have a bit more of a free-for-all. But my first question is, do you know which species the coronavirus leading to COVID jumped from to get to humans? So we've got an eye on chat here. And I'm looking for responses in chat, ideally. Okay, Victoria's first and Joanne soon after bats. Yeah, absolutely. So the genetic code of COVID-19 is 96% the same as that found in bats. So bats are almost certainly the origin of COVID-19. Now, I'm going to have a sort of very rapid pause here. I put a movie trailer in the chat at the start. Some of you may have had a chance to look at that. I hope so. That was a trailer for the movie Contagion. Hollywood blockbuster, Matt Damon, and so on. And there are lessons there for COVID. So I want you to, given what I've just said about bats being the origin for COVID, I've put a YouTube link. It's a 2-minute video in the chat for you, and I'll just pause for a minute or two just to let you look at that trailer. When I saw it, my jaw hit the floor. It's uncanny about what happens in Hollywood and what happens in real life. So I'm just going to give you a moment to look at that. Okay, so I'm going to come back to you now. It's a 1 minute 40-second video, and for those of you that saw it, and especially those of you that saw the trailer for Contagion, the movie trailer just basically showed COVID. It showed a coronavirus spreading around the world. And the explainer, that video that hopefully you've just had a quick look at, it starts with Matt Damon dancing with his daughter because they both survived. Great news. but it was absolutely uncanny. What happens in that video, in that clip, to explain the origin of the disease is a bulldozer goes along to clear a tropical forest, dehoming a bat colony. So the bats have to go somewhere else, and there's less and less native forest for them to move into. So the bats then move into an agricultural building where there are pigs being cultivated, and so on, and the bat interacts with the pigs. The pigs catch the virus or convey the virus, and then the pigs are ultimately used in a restaurant environment to serve food to, in that case, quite wealthy punters. So this is exactly what we think has happened with COVID. Bats are the cause of this. There's a lot of deforestation going on, which is upsetting the natural balance and the natural environment for many habitats, for many species. So they're coming into contact with humans, and now we're catching their diseases. So that's what's happened here. Hope you liked that. When I first saw that, I just couldn't believe it. It was uncanny. It's 10 years ago, Hollywood basically predicted COVID. So that leads me to one of the themes I want to talk about. I want to talk about the illegal wildlife trade. My interest in this developed from another of our students, a PhD student, Anthony Sizek, who's from Zimbabwe, and he's working with us now on savanna environments, looking at Miombo woodland. But he has quite a strong understanding of the illegal wildlife trade, and it just piqued my interest. So I started developing these teaching materials this year around this topic. So illegal wildlife trade is the illegal selling and buying of non-domesticated plants and animals, of course, and products derived from them. And the most common traded, and we'll tell you what, I'm going to ask you, what do you think, when you think of the illegal wildlife trade, which animals are you thinking of immediately? So more comments in chat, please. So I've given you elephants. I've just got a few. I think I've got 4 pictures on this slide. What sort of things, what sort of species, which sorts of animals, specifically animals, do you think of when you hear the term the illegal wildlife trade? So comments in chat, please. Angela Marie, straight there with pangolin. Thank you very much. What else? What else do we have? Rhino, tiger, armadillo. Yeah, pangolin. Good. Okay. These are the sorts of things. So you're clearly experts here. You've leapt ahead from where I was expecting us to get to. I'm not sure you've leapt ahead, but you're the advanced team. I've got elephants here and rhinos, of course, and a graphic of tigers. And my next question was, what's the most commonly traded species? So I will ask it. What is the most commonly traded of the illegal wildlife trade, of the animals traded in around the world? Yes, it is. Thank you, Sally. Straight there. So I was busy congratulating Alex and Maria, who got straight to pangolin when I asked this question. I wasn't expecting this. I asked my students the same question when I was doing the teaching sessions. And pangolins, and Anthony told me about pangolins. I didn't know an awful lot about them. I didn't know they were such a traded commodity. But this is how many are poached per year, 100,000 or so, selling for up to maybe $350 per kilo. So there's a lot of money in this business. So how much money? What do you think? So it's hard to estimate, but estimates have been made. Here's a shopping list. You go, what have we got in here? We've got gorillas for I'm going to set you back $400,000, African grey parrot, a couple of thousand, tiger, whole pangolin, 1,750. Things like elephant tusks and rhino horns go for these sorts of numbers. Can anyone suggest to me, give me an estimate for the value, the global value of the illegal wildlife trade? And this comes from a UN survey, I think a couple of years ago. I think it was 2 or 3 years ago. In dollars, how many dollars do you think the illegal wildlife trade is worth? Any offers? Who's going to start the bidding? I'll give you a clue. It's in the billions. How many billion? is the illegal wildlife trade worth? No one going for this. Oh, hold on, we got one. Oh, we've got some. I wasn't scrolled down. 10 billion, 10 billion, 12 billion, $1 billion. Yeah, we're getting there. 23 billion was the UN estimate, so it's 2017. $23 billion is in this illegal wildlife trade. Okay, so this is a big deal. And this is causing us environmental problems. So land use change, driving animals away from where they should be, and then this insatiable demand for these wild animals, these non-domesticated animals. Some for much for food, some often delicacies, some for herbal properties or medicinal properties and things like that. You know, there's just a culture around these things. So there's a golden triangle in Southeast Asia, sort of around 2 or 3 countries stretching into China and so on, where there's huge trade in this area. Okay, thank you for that. Right, now I'm going to move to the place I want to focus on principally for this talk. And I'm going to give you a narrative, probably a dozen or so slides around 2 projects that we've done successively. And we're in Kruger National Park. So here's a map of South Africa. This is Kruger National Park, which is right in the northeastern tip of South Africa. And we do plenty of work on savanna monitoring in this area. I've been working there since about 2001. It's a world-leading game reserve. I'm sure some of you have heard of it. Some of you may have been there. I know some people in the audience tonight have been there. And it is particularly prone to poaching. So the numbers bear reading. Most of the rhinos poached in South Africa come from Kruger National Park, and South Africa is the biggest country in Africa for rhino poaching. And you can imagine, I showed you the value, that however tens of thousands of dollars for a single rhino tusk, shows you the problem here. So poaching is a significant problem, and we want to ensure that we need to put protection in, to care for these animals, ensure that poaching is minimized or eliminated. But we need to have a habitat for them to live in as well, an effective and workable habitat, because environmental change is going on. So savanna habitats are, it's interesting to wonder what you think of when you hear the word savanna. People have different images in their mind, and they can vary quite a lot in terms of flora, but it's some combination of trees and grass, of woodland and grassland. Okay, different kind of heterogeneity mixes of these 2 properties. But you need a mix, and you need those different kind of sub-habitats within there to sustain all of these animals. So that floral setting, the mosaic, the mixture of woodland and grassland, supports a lot of animal life, a lot of biodiversity. And Kruger is a wildlife reserve. It protects animals as far as it can and sustains a habitat as far as it can. But it is a very managed environment, and it is built around the tourist industry. So it's funded because people come to see the nice animals. Now there's change going on in savanna environments. There's significant change in terms of the flora. And in particular, in the recent decades, I first heard the term scrubbing up, or it was structural homogenization of woodland in savanna environments when I went there, I think in 2001 or 2002. And at the time they were talking about it, they were saying, we think we're losing some of the grassland. We think there's more and more woody environments, shrubland and trees, large trees, woodland environments as well. And if that's changing, and if it's changing significantly, it's a problem, because woody encroachment and the woodland grassland mix is very significant in terms of sustaining biodiversity, in terms of creating the food resources for the animals that are there, for predator-prey interactions. There needs to be enough of this species to sustain the top predator populations as well. And of course, for game viewing, we need animals to sustain the tourist revenue. And here's a really fascinating study, not mine, by some researchers called Bond and Midgley, looking at Eastern Cape, South Africa. And now we have a really rich archive of imagery. I work with satellite images, but aerial photos are also useful, and sometimes on the ground photos are particularly useful. And you can find these things historically going back in time. And somewhere like Kruger is a very well recorded place, actually. They have permanent photographing stations where you just go and take a photo every year or twice a year. And they've got that record for a century now. This is an Eastern Cape, and this is a savanna environment in 1925. By 1993, we were seeing a reasonable amount of woody encroachment, amount of greening up with more. But some trees, and there's some sort of forested areas in the background. And this is an unused environment by land use by humans. So there's clearly some change going on beyond which that we can easily control. So what do? We want to go and examine and find out whether that scrubbing up is taking place. So a team of us went out there. I did a field survey in 2001. So we did another one a few years ago. We now had a fairly substantial period of time to do a comparison of the data. And we do vegetation survey, and this is us out in the field. This is a colleague from Nottingham, Hannah, an interested observer in the background. It's always giraffes that come and peer around at what you're doing. And we're just out here doing vegetation survey. But it's quite difficult to do vegetation surveys in these environments. It's laborious, and a 3-week campaign in 2001 yielded this many survey points, okay, working in this difficult sort of environment. So it's not many. This is a map, but this is distribution showing the survey points. And there are other dangers, of course. All the photos that I'm showing you of savanna environments in this talk are our photos. They're from the field team, and I'll name check a few of them a little bit later on. But there are these creatures lying in wait, so you have to be very cautious and sufficiently protected. So you go everywhere with a game guard and all that sort of stuff. But this limits the work requirement. This is a laborious thing, and the natural dangers limit what you can do in the field. That's where I come in, essentially. That's where my particular interest comes in, working with satellite images. We have these satellite images. Oops. Much of my work is in extracting useful environmental images from these environmental information from these images. So this is the base data here is a quick bird image. It's a high spatial resolution image of Kruger Park. This is Skukuza, the main sort of settlement where all the workers and researchers and so on live. And you can see the sort of mosaic of things going on. Cloud is a problem with satellite imagery, as I'm sure you're aware. But from this, we can calibrate the imagery using the vegetation survey data that we've got and run a land cover classification. So essentially do vegetation mapping. This is a map that we created. This is just one of the study areas I'm showing you. It exhibits the tree loss quite nicely, which is why I picked this one, even though there's a lot of cloud in it. And here's another image from our work 12 years later in 2014. We did another field campaign, I think it was in 2014 or 2015, new imagery, direct comparison. And it's the green and yellow classes that we're particularly interested in here. And probably, apart from the cloud, what's most noticeable is a loss of the dark green from the early image to the late image. And these are trees, these are large trees, okay, mature trees. They've just gone, completely gone. There's also quite a lot of increase in the brighter green color, though you can't see that so well, and also some loss of the grasses. It's not so easy to picture that, but you can see the tree loss in this graphic. This table gives you the numbers, gives you the stats showing change over time. And I won't, this is from a research paper, which is why this is the table I've got. But I'll sort of talk you through it in turn. You don't need to worry about the individual sites. We'll just look at sites together, the combined sites 1 to 3. And if I just show you each of the major categories in turn, here's trees, and overall, we had cover change of trees down by 13.5% of the study area as a whole. Okay, so significant loss of trees over that time. So that doesn't make sense, does it? We're worrying about woody encroachment and loss of grassland. But then you go to the shrubs, the small woody individuals, you know, some of whom will go on to become trees, but they're not there yet. And there's very significant expansion here. Up 18.1% of the study area has essentially been encroached by woody shrubs. Then we go on to the grasses, and there's two categories of grass: long grass and then short grass or sparse grass. And we lose 5% of the long grasses here. So we lose 13% trees, 5% grass, we've got 18% more shrubs. So that's explaining the woody encroachment, but it's really interesting. And the most startling result that came out from this research wasn't expected by anyone. And that was shrub encroachment is occurring. We're losing grass, we're gaining shrubs, but we didn't know shrubs were coming from two different directions, two different causes, coming from tree loss and coming from conversion from grassland. Okay. So then we're thinking, right, so what's causing this? What are the drivers for this environmental process, this woody encroachment? It's really important that we work this stuff out so that we can start to tackle it. And in this research area, various different environmental factors have been put forward. And here's a graphic showing rainfall and precipitation and burnt area, so fires that take place over a period from 1985, which is the 15 years running up to our study period, and then the 15 years of the study period itself from 2000 to 2015. So before is important as well as the study period itself. But also with temperature, these environmental drivers just showed no pattern. There's nothing going on here. It's noisy, there's ups and downs, it's seasonal change, there's climatic issues going on, but it cannot be linked to a steady increase of shrubs and loss of grasses and stuff like that. So there must be something else. Okay, there's no clear relationship with these environmental drivers and this process of woody encroachment. So what about elephants? This is over the same time period, the size of the elephant population in Kruger Park, going from around 7,500 individuals or 7,000 individuals in 1985 to 16,500 by 2013, 2014 time, so dramatic increase. Okay, so does this have any relationship with woody encroachment? And happily, there is an experiment that we can do here, because within the study area, there's a significant research effort going on in Kruger, and there's an exclosure. There's more than one actually, but an exclosure is the opposite of an enclosure. It keeps animals out. So there's an experimental exclosure called Nakulu, which excludes elephants and also giraffes from inside the interior of the exclosure. But all other animals can get in and graze normally. So it's really just elephants. Giraffes aren't such a big deal. The population isn't so big. And what happens here? Well, here's the enclosure, and here's the area outside the exclosure. Okay, so in the exclosure, no elephants. Here, there's elephants. And with trees, remember, there was real significant loss of trees overall in the study area. And in this site, tree loss decreased by 12% over the study period. Whereas in the exclosure where there's no elephants, trees actually increased. So clearly, elephants are having an effect on this. So is that it? Does that explain the shrub gain as well? Because tree loss equals shrub gain, so there's significant shrub gain going on outside the exclosure. So is that much less in the exclosure, showing a correlation between the two? Well, it's not. No, shrubs are still gaining, in fact, even more here. And that suggests that there must be some other driver as well. The elephants can explain the trees, but not the shrubs. And then looking at the grasses are declining outside the exclosure in the study area, very much in the exclosure, and sparse grasses are also declining in the exclosure. So there's a lot going on, but the elephants are clearly having an effect. I watched this individual, this elephant. I just sat in the car in 4x4 after a day's fieldwork, and we watched this elephant demolish this tree over a period of about 15 minutes. Elephants eat trees. So there's clear direct link between the elephant population and the loss of trees. But tree loss cannot be directly correlated to shrub gain, since shrub gain is still going on in the exclosure. So elephants eat shrubs as well as trees. They're not impacting that. So there must be something else that's going on here. And what we think it is, and we did some experiments as far as we could, but the data are relatively few and far between in this case. So it seems strongly indicative that this increase in atmospheric CO2, remember that air pollution caused by humans, caused by human activity, that has been climbing steadily around the world, but also in this environment between 1985 and 2015. And that growth, and we know the sort of the mechanical processes here that plants obviously sequester carbon dioxide to grow. So it makes sense that there's a correlation of more woody vegetation when you've got more carbon dioxide in the environment. So this is it. Tree loss is caused by elephants, and shrub gain is caused by atmospheric CO2. So that takes us to the second of the studies. And we're just zooming in a little bit more now on one of those classes, on the short grass expanses, grazing lawns. These are extremely important resources. They're a food resource for mega herbivores, rhinos, and they're significant in influencing the fire regime, because in the short grassy areas, there's not so much fuel for fires to catch and then transport over distance. So these grazing lawns are particularly important to sustain the biodiversity, sustain the habitats for the creatures, for the wildlife in the park. So we're interested in that. We're interested in looking at grazing lawns in more detail. And I have a PhD student now, soon to finish his PhD on this. Kwame is with us tonight. I'm pleased to say you'll see a picture of him later. And here, the problem that we've got is these environments, as you know, savannas are very heterogeneous environments, and land cover mapping is you know, a dark art. It's difficult to map vegetation categories from satellite images because the pixels look similar. There's spectral similarity between them. This is how mixed an image can be. So traditional approaches of classification aren't necessarily all that accurate. So now I bring in the third partner of the Data Science Research Centre that we're representing tonight, computer science. So the spatial element is the geography, the ecology and conservation is clearly the biology. But now we're relying on our computer scientists to deliver us with high-powered computational processes to unravel the images and map them at a higher level of accuracy. I'm not going to say anything more about that. These are the approaches. They're machine learning approaches, and we use these four approaches: random forest, support vector machine, classification and regression trees, and multi-layer perceptron in the grazing lawn analysis, because it gave us results. In our land cover classification, with significantly lower accuracies when using traditional land cover classification approaches that I grew up on, when we put in these machine learning approaches, we are classifying these environments, including the dark green grazing lawn class, very, very accurately. So these are fit for purpose. These are fit for scientific use and public dissemination, actually. So we can map the land cover, and from that we can extract the grazing lawn presence. So just various different, this is the methodology we used on the way. So probability of grazing lawn, and then thresholding these probabilities to ultimately give us a binary grazing lawn map. And South African National Park and the scientific services at Kruger had never had this sort of resource before. They know how, they obviously tell us how important grazing lawns are, and they want this information so that they've got a much better understanding of their infrastructure, of their environment, and what they need to look at and protect. And we've delivered this to them. They've now got, for the first time, very accurate grazing lawn maps. So It's image-based, it's machine learning-based, but we still do fieldwork checking, of course. We do land cover survey, as I've mentioned, and vegetation measurement. So for vegetation survey, you get a transect and you take measurements. And here's Kwame with Dan, a research assistant, and another interested onlooker, doing some vegetation measurement here, and then Kwame and myself setting out a transect for land cover survey. We do this so that we can train the machine learning algorithms, so we know where we are. But you don't get everything. We can, from this process, land cover survey and vegetation measurement, we can, of course, see the vegetation. We can map the vegetation, we know where that is. But, and I'm a vegetation scientist, I've always worked with vegetation, I've never worked with animals before. But here, of course, we're interested in the animals. We're interested in knowing which animals are using these grazing lawns, okay, and non-grazing lawn environments. This is a long grass environment shown here. So how do you identify the animals? They don't stay still. If you walk towards that giraffe, he legs it, he or she legs it, they get out of there. And as soon as you arrive on the scene, most of the animals disappear. So now you have to get your hands dirty. Here's the first photo I took when we went to the first field recce in the most recent fieldwork period 2 years ago. And these zebras did not hang around long. So of course, you know, I think, you probably guessed that you have to collect, you have to identify the dung. You have to identify this evidence that the animals were there. So that's where we're going to now. We've reached the point where we're going to get into the dung quiz. Okay, but just one slide before that, I just want to get my thank yous in at this point, mainly so that I can point out to these individuals that they're banned from participating in the quiz. Okay, so Kwame has led on the grazing lawn work, and he's supervised by myself and Ian from biology. I'm pleased to say Ian has managed to get here, arrange childcare and get here. Ardendu is from computer science, and he's my guru when I need to know information about machine learning. And then there's various other contributors, especially from the geo department now. And you've seen Joe's work earlier on. Dan Knight was one of the field workers here. So that's that. So now we're going to the dung quiz itself, and this will probably take about 10 or 15 minutes, I would imagine. So ready yourself. I have prizes for you. I have a first prize and then 3 runners-up prizes. I'm not too sure how the scoring's been about work, but we'll work on it. So here we go, the Great African Dung Quiz, or another title. And here are all the candidates. Here are all the animals that we're interested in looking at. Here are all the bottoms of the animals that we're interested in looking at here. Okay. So here we have the candidates, the runners and riders. Here is a kudu, and I'm going to recap all these. They're at the top of the identification slide, so don't worry, you don't need to memorize all these. Gorgeous looking kudu here, magnificent creature. This is a scrub hare, okay, a bit more familiar with that sort of thing. This is the ubiquitous impala. These are everywhere in Kruger. You cannot move. They're the first thing you see. They're gorgeous looking creatures, but you're so bored of them. You know, by the end of the first day. Zebra, of course, giraffe. These are all our field photos. This is a gorgeous steenbok, quite rare, very unusual to see these animals. We saw these, or saw this one as well. A baboon, hyena, crocodile, waterbuck, human. Here's Kwame, happily at the end of his field work there. Water buffalo, elephant, rhino, and here are some of the highlights. Here's a cheetah and a lion. We saw that photo earlier on. So these are all the candidates, okay? And now we're on to the quiz itself. So there's 10. We're going to go through 10. I'm going to show you a picture of the dung, and first answer wins, I guess, in chat. So get on chat. I'm going to click on the images. I hope they're big enough to see. We're not in a big lecture theatre, so it's going to be a bit tricky. So we'll go to number 1. What animal is this? Any suggestions for this sort of animal dung? It's white. You can see the size of it according to the pen. Any offers? Anyone brave enough to start the bidding? If nobody gets it bang on, and that might well not happen, then I'm happy for sort of broader groups, carnivores, herbivores, these sorts of things. Right, you've just ruined it for everyone, Kirsty, frankly. You're straight there. That's very, very impressive. Well done. Let me try and get back to it. I'm going to reveal it. So with the hyena, the giveaway here is the color. So hyena have very high diet of bone. They crunch a lot of bone when they're scavenging. And so they actually, normally they're done, or when fresh, it's gleaming white. So yes, here you go. Well done. Right, I'm going to write that down. Well done, Kirsty. You're winning. Right, what we got next? Number 2. What is this? What is this? This is a tricky one. You see the size of the pen again. Any offers on any broader groups? I'm happy for sort of animal groups. I'm not sure what the family, what the biology is. Ian for different categories. Any offers here? Monkey from Kirsty. It's not a monkey. It's not a monkey. Cheetah from Jack. Jack, have you seen this before? I don't think you've seen the quiz before. You're not, I don't think you're right. You might be right. We don't actually know, I'm afraid to say. But it is a scat. It's from a member of the cat family. We think it's probably a smaller cat. It might be a genet or something like that. But it is from a cat family, and it wasn't possible to identify it at that time. So I'm giving you it for cheetah or lion. So any cat or anyone, if anyone had said the kind of cat family, then you get a point for that. So well done, Jack. Right, number 3, what have we got now? Smaller this time. I think this is a tricky one. I'm trying to remember what this is. What sort of thing? It's not a hare. You're quick on the keys, Kirsty. This is a really good strategy because there's no negative marking here. Any other offers? So I'll just remind you of these. Giraffe, giraffe, elephant, zebra, human, lion, crocodile, hyena, waterbuck, steenbok, baboon, impala, steenbok. Well done, Sally. That's why I was going to go through it, because you can't remember all these, can you? So waterbuck and steenbok and kudu are difficult. It is a steenbok. Gorgeous, gorgeous creature. Beautiful creature. But yes, so it was some sort of buck, some sort of antelope type thing. By the look of it, by the size of it. That's hopefully what you were going on, that sort of idea. What are we on to? Number 4. Something a bit different here. What does this look like? What does this remind you of? Any offers on number 4? So I was going through these ones like impala, water buffalo, or just buffalo, rhino, cheetah, kudu, and scrub hare. Any offers? Zebra. You're right, Kirsty, you're right. You're on 2. Kirsty's winning, guys. Dan, good to see you chipping in. Kudu, yeah. It could have been, couldn't it? It's the right sort of size. It is a zebra. It is a zebra. What number was that? I can't even remember. That was 4. So we're on 5, right? What are these little pellets? Yes, you've got to be quick. Well done, Sue. But Kirsty's in there again. You've got to be quick on the keys with these ones. This is often people just keep saying hare whenever anything small comes through. So we've got it out of the way quickly here. It is indeed a scrub hare. Very good. On to 6. Right, what's this? What does this look like? It is not a rhino. Thanks for playing. Elephant, it's not an elephant either, actually. It is a buffalo. Well done, Keris. It's a buffalo. It looks a bit like a cowpat, I guess, you know, and that's, you know, a relative. So, although, you know, don't consider buffalo in the same way. They're pretty vicious. They're responsible for more human death than any other animal, I think, in Africa. Very good. That was, what was that? Was that 5 or 6? That was 6, wasn't it? So 7. What is this? What is this? Any guesses? Got to be quick on the keys. Kudu, it is not a kudu. Good guess. Baboon, no, it's not a baboon either. Anything else? It's closer to kudu than it is to baboon. Okay, I'm going to give you it. This one was, yeah, antelope. So yeah, close. I mean, a kind of antelope, but kudu was close. So waterbuck. This one is another of the kind of antelope type things. Number 8. So getting towards the end. So there's still an opportunity here, people. You've still got prizes to be won. What is this? What haven't we had? What do you think might be included here? There's only 3 to go. Very good, Kirsty. Very good indeed. It is a giraffe dropped from a height. Number 9. So here's a zoom in. Here's a showing you there's a lot of this stuff. And here's a zoom in version to give you a better idea of that. So what might we be looking at here? There's a lot of this stuff all over the place. What sort of animal is it? Kirsty, you don't have to answer anymore. You don't have to answer anymore. What else do we have? What sort of animal is it? It's not the hare. Yeah, so it's another one of the sort of antelope buck type things. How many times has this been tried? It's not a kudu, still not a kudu. Good trying, good effort, Dan. Pleased to see you chipping in. What's the most ubiquitous of these animals? Thank you, Sally, well done. It is the impala. So the clue's sort of they're everywhere. They're everywhere. Okay, last one, fingers on buzzers. Got to be quick here. It's actually not a rhino, and a lot of people do say rhino, and rhino is one of the most common guesses that I've had in this quiz. People like rhinos, want to see them and so on. It's actually not a rhino. So that means, what is it? Come on, this is supposed to be an easy one. Thank you, well done, Sally. Yes, it is an elephant. It's an elephant. See the pen for scale here, this sort of thing. Okay, so that takes us to the end. Thank you very much. Thanks for playing. You now know where you are, and I can reveal fantastically the prizes have worked out absolutely perfectly, because I've got a first prize and I've got 3 runners-up prizes. So runners-up, and here are the prizes. Here are the prizes. Now, I was going to get you biltong. Yeah, biltong is sort of scraps of dried meat, and you can buy biltong in Kruger Park from elephants and impalas and kudus and all the creatures that we saw today. I kind of felt that would be going against this, and it's all sustainably sourced and so on. But I kind of felt that'd be going against the spirit of an environmental talk, so I didn't go for that. So what I've gone for, I'll just try and show you this. It's only gonna show you if I'm there. It's mango biltong. It's dried mango. Okay, so it's organic. It's good stuff. So I've got 3 of these for our 3 runners up. So congratulations to Jack and Sally and Keris. Well done to you. But our quiz winner, as you all know, is Kirsty. And this is a seriously good prize. This is Amarula. It is the South African Baileys. It comes from the marula tree. So again, it's kind of relevant here for a talk about savanna environments. And it's alcoholic, and naturally it's alcoholic actually. And elephants have been known to get drunk drinking from the roots of a marula tree. So those are the prizes. How we're going to get them, I'm not absolutely sure. So please email me to arrange that. We'll be collecting from the geography department because we're not all in the room together. Okay, so well done. That was great. Thank you very much for playing that. I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you're a little bit more enlightened now. Now we're coming towards the end of the time. I've got a few slides to wrap up, so that's what I'm going to do. And we're going to be more or less at the end. There won't be that much time for questions. I'm happy to linger a little bit longer if anyone does have questions to ask. I'm sorry it's taken a little bit longer to get through the content. So I'll just finish off my slides and we'll be done in a wee moment. So that's the quiz. Back to Savannah Habitats. So what are the implications for Savannah Habitats, for the environment? What are the implications from COVID for these sorts of environments? So especially, we started off thinking about illegal wildlife. We started thinking about poaching in Kruger. So the first good news here is that poaching fell significantly during COVID lockdown, and again, attributed to COVID lockdown. Rhino poaching in 2020 fell by 1/3 in Kruger. So this is very good news. But of course, it comes at a cost, and there's a real problem for environmental and conservation science at the moment, with the bottom falling out of the market, essentially funding being pulled, because the revenue streams to generate much of this conservation funding was also prevented by COVID and COVID lockdown. So these game reserves were not open for viewing. So all of those tourist dollars were not coming in. Okay, so where do we go from here? And I'm not going to really say anything more about savannas, just to think broadly about the environment, and a couple of thoughts, really quite general, but just to wrap things up. We do have an opportunity at this point. We've seen some benefits environmentally in reduction of poaching. We've seen benefits from reduced air pollution because of lifestyle changes that were enforced upon us. But COVID has given us all pause to think about this stuff and just to reflect on it, and try and you know, there's been a lot of talk about we're never going back to where we were before. We're not going back to normal. It's going to be a different situation in the future. And now we really do have a big opportunity to actually reset, and we need to reset fundamental societal priorities. So the biggest priority, or the biggest issue here is demand for material goods. We need to kind of realize that, you know, we're in the context of the earth and the resources it has and the effects it can have on us as a population. We're going to need to start doing things differently, and we need to have these conversations and make these changes at societal level. So it involves the politicians, but involves individual lobbyists as well. I think we need to rethink what we do individually, and hopefully from an environmental perspective, there will be continuation of working from home, or a much greater proportion of working from home in the future. That's going to affect energy use, and especially transport use. And you saw the impacts of that. They were absolutely stark. So back to the Festival of Ideas theme, renewing. I think we need to renew how we relate to and with the environment. We have a symbiotic relationship with it. We use it for all the stuff we want, but we also abuse it when we overuse it. So we need to renew this at a fundamental level. We're doing some of this in Edge Hill. I just want to promote SustainNet. I'm involved in SustainNet. It's been an absolute pleasure to be involved over the last couple of years. And it's a network community working to advance sustainability in the region. We're just trying to gather people, like-minded people together, to see what we agree on, to see what pressure we can bring to bear on companies, on government, on individuals and organizations, so that we're all a little bit more responsible. But the big opportunity we have right now, this is my final slide, is COP, Conference of the Parties. So the UN framework on climate change. The annual meeting didn't happen last year, actually, because of COVID. It's in the UK. Okay, this is a one-off. It's here with us now. It's in November. It's in Glasgow this year, and it will be going ahead. So there is a real opportunity for us at an individual level to start influencing this. Really a once-in-a-generation opportunity. You know, while it's here, while we've got this momentum coming back from COVID to try and change things environmentally. There's lots of things going on here. Edge Hill's involved in the COP26 Universities Network, so there's 55 and rising of us so far to raise ambition for tangible outcomes. So we're all discussing what's going on, what we're going to do, what we hope, what we expect, how we get there, how we lobby, who we influence. But anyone can get involved. At the COP website, there's a web page called Get Involved, about the individual. And there's lots of different things you can do. There's lots of different ways to get involved. So a rather sort of cheesy term to end, think global, global act local, but I can't really remember when it was more appropriate. The main thing is that we do act. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Paul. Absolutely fascinating talk. And I've learned a new word, herbivory, which I'm going to adopt as I am one. But I'm very aware of the fact that we are actually out of time. And as you stated at the beginning, we have competing demands of the tour, the tennis, and some other game that's played with the ball. And it's Friday night. And normally what we'd be doing in these situations is retiring to a room on campus with some free wine and nibbles. And we're not doing that. So I think what I'm going to do is ask people to take the conversation offline with you directly, Paul. And I'm going to thank you very much for your contribution for the quiz. I thought I took photos of weird stuff on field work, but I think you win the prize. And so those of you who want to stay on and talk to Paul directly, please do so. Otherwise, I invite all of you to leave, go to your fridge, get yourself a glass of wine, sit down and enjoy the summer of sport and reflect over the weekend on some of the things that Paul's talked about. Also, thanks to everybody who joined us for the Festival of Ideas this week. It's been a fascinating week of talks. Thanks very much, everybody, and have a great weekend. Cheers.